Well, so far we haven't heard much about the ecology of ponds, but that's about to change. You'll now hear two talks, one from myself and one from Giles Consulter. I'm talking about habitats and plants that we found during the 3 years of the project, and Giles will be talking about aquatic invertebrates. Thank you. Importantly, obviously, the area we study is the Hummocky Moraine on the left, and the on the right are ponds that were identified by volunteers within the Hummocky Moraine, marked by those red spots. The next slide. These are the sites that I'm going to be mentioning within the presentation. And again, you can see the numbers of ponds that potentially, that is rather a potential, because a lot of those were identified from historic maps. Nonetheless, we've got, you can see the distribution there, the close proximity of ponds. We've heard other talks about the fact that kettle-hole ponds or ice age ponds are found in clusters, and that does demonstrate that information. To start with talking about, we've already mentioned a bit about Moccas Park. This is an iconic site that's actually been studied for many years, and research goes right back to the 1970s, looking at both the geology and the ecology of the site. But I must say that a lot of the research done at Moccas was actually focused on the veteran trees. And that's really what Moccas is known for. But we've been discovering new things about Moccas that show that the wetland habitats are very important as well. This shows the site. It's really the most, I suppose, natural looking of perhaps all the sites that we visit. We've got a really nice zone of vegetation there. We've got emergent vegetation represented by the soft brush and the sedges around the margin, and then open water. And then on the left is actually the island. In fact, that channel was actually dug out in the 1980s, in fact, but it has retained open water nonetheless. And just to point out that we are doing some management on the island because that has become very wooded in recent years. It has changed quite dramatically in the last 30 or 40 years or so. This was one of the other ponds that has already been shown. Olivia showed this one. This is the round kettle, well, ice age pond. It's kind of typical in shape to a kettle site, and you can just see on the left one of those iconic veteran trees that's hanging over the pond, and I managed to take this rather interesting artistic shot. It's probably the first artistic slide we've seen so far, but you can just see Beth in the background there. So this is one of our training events that we had at Moccas. Botanical surveys, we've done approximately 38 surveys of detailed ponds. But we've also done an additional 18 surveys of other sites. So that was kind of in addition to the targeted area of doing 20, but we actually, the reason we did more was because there's 20 sites, but within those sites, there are extra ponds as well. So we ended up by doing research, detailed research on the aquatic invertebrates and the plants in a particularly, in a large number of sites. Back to Moccas, this is some of the plants that we find there. Good iconic wetland species, yellow loosestrife, purple loosestrife, bulrush, soft brush. There'll be gypsy work there as well. This is at the east end of Moccas Park, looking over the bridge there to the round pond, to just give you an idea of where we are. Next one, please. Then Now, the rare plant that's found at Moccas, that's found nowhere else, is bladderwort, Utricularia australis. And you can see on the right there, that's the bladders there. It feeds on water fleas, so it's a carnivorous plant, and it's only found in Moccas Park in Herefordshire, that is. So that tells you the story. This plant, obviously a grass, orange foxtail. The more familiar one is marsh foxtail. The orange foxtail is quite a rarity, certainly within Herefordshire, associated with a good wetland, established wetland sites. But in Herefordshire, we tend to, it's mainly found on ice age sites. So there is a link, and you'll see that theme running through. The volunteers undertook this survey here, which is the Kettlehole survey form, and that was based on the information provided by the Freshwater Habitats Trust. So they were doing surveys of ponds across the country, but we adapted it to our situation. I just put that up there just to show the fact that we're looking at plant information as well. This is just to give you an idea of what Giles and myself, with the help of the volunteers, because they generally were mentioning this each time we went out. But here's the list of species, and you will notice there that's from 2 of the ponds at Moccas Park. We've got quite a respectable total. Those of you familiar with plants, you'll see some of the more not super rare plants, but we've got a really nice good mix of plants at Moccas. Right, the other site that is very close to Moccas, it's in the same 10 kilometre square. It just happens to be to the north of the River Wye. It's the Sturts, and that's associated again with the River Wye because it's on the historic floodplain of the Wye. And you see that I pointed out there. I should have thanked David Lovelace for providing this shot, which was taken, I think, well over 10 years ago now. But the site there, the Waterloo meadow, it's also known as Sturts East. You can just about make out the ponds there. And I think you can actually make out, I should probably point out our ghost pond there, but do we have a point? The ghost, that's our ghost pond. Some of you haven't actually, was it, wow. Yeah, that's the one we dug out. And it's really interesting to see on this slide that it is a hollow that was identified, by LiDAR and on the ground. So it's very interesting that some of us actually doubted it had been a proper pond, but it clearly is. And I'll show you some shots of that later. Let's move on. These are the historic, 1940s. Let's put it that way. Photographs from the RAF took of the Sturts. So you notice this field here. We talk about pond clusters. Well, this is the Letton Lakes has got the highest density of ponds that we come across of all the landscapes. And this is just slightly to the east of the Sturts. So, and it's quite, it's quite a big area as well, covering several square kilometres across. To look at the habitats, this is pond in Sturts North, and the sedge there is slender tufted sedge. I think it's Carex acuta that we have here. This is slightly earlier in the season. The leaves are not on the trees, and that's later in the season. But we've also got other juncus and things there. This is a really good site for snipe, and hope still is. You can also see lots of bubbles coming off there. I like to think, I'm sure we think that that's oxidization that's occurring on that site. And then looking at some of the other ponds, Olivia showed us the sort of registivity surveys that were done and showing these very shallow ponds. This is an example of one from here. And this is one that holds water perhaps a little bit longer. So you see that we're doing did some water chemistry on here at the time, and that's one of the slightly larger pools. So there's a variation. We're talking about variation. Yes, there is quite a variation on the Sturts. I think the next one probably shows a different type of pond. And again, I pointed out Waterloo. This is the Waterloo site, and you can immediately see that, you know, really nice structure here. And this is branch fir reeds. I think we move on to the next slide and show you detail. This is what we like to show as a pond that's got really good habitat structure. So it's got floating vegetation represented by broadleaf pondweed. We've got emergent species. This is a yellow iris, and then we've got other emergent species around here, just soft rush, and this one, feathery one here, is tubular water dropwood. Next slide shows in greater detail. It's actually a biodiversity action plant species, where they call it something else now, which I forget. Anybody can remind me later. And this is a very rare plant in Herefordshire, and it's almost exclusively just found in Ice Age ponds. Okay, next one. Moving on, we've already mentioned about Kenchester being quite an interesting site. They're actually slightly larger ponds at Kenchester than some of the other ones, although we've got quite a lot of variation. But say this pond here is a large pond. One of the other ponds has swelled up an awful lot, so it's a very old map actually that I produced for the countryside stewardship. See the number there. Okay, next one. Aerial photograph, courtesy Google Earth. This wooded pond, that's actually pond actually extends all the way in. And this pond here, that one we don't think is a technical pond. And about 16 ponds within Kenchester area, within the Kenchester pools, all really close together within about 1.5 square kilometres. This is the Withy pool, which is the one to the north, which is near the farm buildings. Obviously, Withy pool because of the willows and things, that some of which, most of them, were planted there. But it has nice vegetation structure represented by kingcup, again soft brush, yellow iris, float grass, and then I think the next slide will show you some of the other specialities there. But we also have slender tufted sedge, and I think there's 5 sedges there. You can see it's a very quite a bulky sedge, so that's well over 1 metre in height, and it's a rare species, and in Herefordshire is just confined to Ice Age ponds. The other interesting thing that we found in the next one is that when the county botanist, who was Peter Garner at the time, he found the hybrid between tufted sedge and slender tufted sedge, which is only known from 3 other sites within the country at the time. So that's kind of the 4th site. Other species importance that we found, golden dock and spike rush. Not only have we found golden dock, we also found marsh dock. And Peter told me that it was the most westerly site within the United Kingdom for marsh dock. There were 2 species of spike rush that we found at Kenchester. I'm just trying to remember the other name. But anyway, okay. The Withy pool also has some quite interesting willows, almond willow, which is actually rather rare in Herefordshire, but presumably planted there basketry, and then possibility of its hybrid as well. Move on. We showed one of the other angles from this previously, but unfortunately the Withy pool is surrounded by ponds with cracked willows, which need regular maintenance. I've been involved with the site since 2010, and this is the 2nd time that it's been pollarded since I've been involved in the site. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to find some other means of getting them done next time. But we also did management of the other willows. We did some costs as well. So 2 minutes. We'll try. Court Farm. This is pond 3. It's a very interesting pond. It's a difference, but there's some unique characteristics about the kettle hole ponds. This one here, if we move on to the next screen, shows that it's receiving water from underground spring. This appears periodically, and yeah, the next one should show. Okay, that shows the location. It also shows this stream here. It's also swelled up in the last 10 years or so to it's got greater water volume than it used to, and there's a lot of talk about higher or more heavy winter rainfall episodes. And one of the reasons that it does fill up is it's right slap bang on top of the Yeazer gravel aquifer here, and that's Kenchester. These are the ponds here. That's the Brockle Quarry, the Shovers gravel pit as well. So that's at the end of the terminal moraine. So it's really close to the terminal moraine. I'll cover this and then we'll decide what to do. So this is one of the pools that I've never visited before. We were very fortunate to be able to get to visit this. You see the Black Mountains in the background. It's right at the western edge of the kettle hole, of our area, right on the edge of the county, in fact. This is one of the introduced plants, sweet flag, spraying here. And then you notice a lot of willow. Next slide will show the same. So you've got like the other sides, like Moccas, and also one of the other Kenchester pools. We have substantial amounts of grey sallow. In fact, a sort of floating mat, sort of formed an island in the middle, which is quite interesting. Again, we found tufted sedge. I just want to mention about this because in the 19th century they recorded tufted sedge and slender tufted sedge, and those records, and no one had been back to the site, so we went back there. So we rediscovered this site, this plant, which hadn't been found since the 19th century. Bogbean is a really interesting plant because it seems to be confined not only to the kettle hole moraine, but to the sort of western extremities of the kettle hole moraine. I like to think that there's some continuity perhaps between it being present for an extended period of time. Partly thinking about that because it's often found in the in Holland as well. The historical samples. This we mentioned about already. This is the famous site where we took some of the Russian Cora and we took the core. But you just want to point out that this is in a sort of valley bottom here, and so these are closed water bodies. So it doesn't receive water from external sources. Then I'm just going to mention about this one here. So next one, you've seen this picture already. Yeah, the Medlands Pond is actually a very wooded pond, or certainly was very wooded. And these are goat willows, or the hybrid species, and it forms a complete tangle of they've got very big and started to collapse and sort of grown into each other. One of the more interesting plants that we found is pond water crowfoot. Normally, the common water crowfoot is the one you would find. And there's only, I think, about a dozen records for Herefordshire, and all of those are in the west, and we've been discovering more of this. I'm very interested about the talk we received earlier by Warren, and this is some of the rarities that I was very interested to see some of the pollen and things that had been found. I also took some samples back myself and went through them, and I'm pretty sure that this is the scale of willow, of the goat willow, the large tree, which is still present. So the deposits are basically from the Neolithic. We've still got goat willow trees around the ponds today. So, and as for the yellow water lily, it wouldn't live, it wouldn't survive in a pond like that. So it must have come from, the pollen must have come from one of the adjoining ponds, a much larger water body, obviously, because it just doesn't exist. It doesn't grow in small water bodies. Because the tangle of willow is so great, we want to protect. You know, if you imagine it like being a peat bog with trees that have established on top of the peat bog, it's really no different that situation. We have peat underneath, and it's quite extensive. Potentially covers quite extensive area. We hope very much that after undertaking this work, that we'll get plants coming back from the seed bank that weren't there before. So we really want to go back and we want to monitor these sites and establish, you know, what's in the seed bank and prove that our work has been worthwhile. Okay, I think I'm going to have to stop. Oh, I don't know, unless you want to. You've got to stop the work.
That's your 20 minutes, Will. So, is there anything specific?
20 minutes is fine.
Yeah.
That's how long was.
Yeah. So
that's how long it's meant to be. It wasn't meant to be 15 minutes.
So is this?
Yes, well, that's how long it's meant to be.
Do you want anything else to bring out? Is there anything specific?
Well, I can run through the slides very quickly. I mean, that's the iconic site. Turner spoke. Let's just run through. That's a rare plant meadow. That's a rare plant also. It's water violet. That's not a rare plant.
It was a really wet day.
Oh, no. This is our ghost pond. And that's it now. This is taken by Charles Overton. So it has filled up. Moraine wood. The Weir Garden plant at the Kenchester area, and that's our management. See what done.
Great, thank you, Will.